Hey, how are you? Well, I made a big painting on Sunday morning, and I thought it might be kind of fun to talk about the process, a little bit about art, and also the story. There's always some kind of a story, I think, with a painting and the working process. So real quick, the frame, I had the frame because I made this frame for another artist for an exhibition, and the deal was if the painting sold, then he would pay me for the frames, and the painting didn't sell. So I've had these frames for a couple of years now, and I made this canvas to fit in the frames. And so I've been painting. I always paint little paintings like this one here, and you could consider them studies. I just like to keep painting because it just keeps you comfortable and sort of warmed up. So I made this painting and another small painting, and I had the canvas out there in the studio, and so Sunday morning I went out and made this painting. And a painting like this is referred to as a premier coup. I guess for the most part premier coups are done outside, but I learned that term from my friend Francis Cunningham. It's really fortunate to meet a great painter, just a great guy, maybe about 15 years ago, and I've become good friends with him, and I go up to his studio in the Berkshires probably twice a year and paint and video him. And anyway, what the term premier coup means is first strike, so it's your first impression. So for the most part, these paintings are done outside, and you're not supposed to go back into them so much. You could go and sort of tighten them up a little bit. And so when I met my friend Dick Cunningham, I had no interest in painting the landscape at all because I was younger and I just felt I wanted to do something more that hadn't been done yet. You know, that sort of whole young art thing, if you know what I'm talking about. And luckily I had enough of an open mind to really get to know this guy and just learn about color, about seeing nature. And it's one of the things he says, you really have to stop, and I think painting forces you to stop and see your surroundings, which is really a good thing. So anyway, what I do, because I really don't have a lot of time to go out and paint in nature, hopefully one day that'll change, but that's probably 20 years from now. So what I do is I take a lot of pictures with my phone, and then I turn them into small paintings when I have a minute, and that tends to warm me up and get me ready for making a big painting like this. So in this case, it all worked out, and I'm happy with the painting. And that brings me to another thought. It's always good to be open to critiques. So for instance, when I bought the painting in here, it was a little bit different, and both my wife and my oldest son over a day or two had expressed an opinion that the blue in the left corner over there was just a little too gray, and so I kind of took that into mind. And then also the blue shadow came down to the corner. So last night I changed that, and I think that that's fine. I think of creativity as it's good to have a sounding board, and that's why I almost envy a band or somebody who works with a creative group, because you can throw ideas back and forth and hone them down to something that's really good. So I think it's a good idea to have an open mind, to just listen to what people say, whether you think they're qualified or not. It's just an opinion, and you can take from it or not take from it. So in this case, I took from it. And I do that with all the time. If people work with me on a project, I always ask them what they think. It really means something to me to know what they think. And I even look for that in the comments of the videos that I make. There's always something to be taken away. I think with YouTube, the one thing that you've learned, or that I've learned, is there's so many creative people out there and so many talented people out there that you don't always have all the answers, so it's good to see what other people are doing and take away from that. So anyway, I just thought I'd talk a little bit about the creative process. At the end of this video, I'll probably put some video. I took video while I was making the painting, which it could be really boring, so I'll chop it down so it goes pretty quickly. But for now, let's go out, back out to the barn, and I'll talk a little bit about the frame. I was building this cherry frame on Friday, and I finished this over the week. And there was just a couple of questions, so I'll answer those and wrap it up. Well, I had a lot of fun with this week's project, or last week's project. I like making frames. They're a lot of fun, and they're pretty quick. You know, they go pretty quick, so it's not like you're toiling away on making drawers and doors and fitting the whole thing. So you just get a lot of bang for your buck pretty quickly, and it's actually good business too. I said last week that the bulk of my business is in making frames, and a big reason for that is if you go to a frame shop, you'll see how expensive frames are, and if you're a woodworker, well, frames don't really use that much material, and they don't take that much time, and you don't have to worry about the drawers swelling or the doors not closing. There's generally no callbacks with making a frame, so it's good business, I think. It works for me. I can't thank you enough for all the great comments. It's just such a pleasure to read those comments and think of all the guys out there making frames, guys and girls. So one question was the runners. I guess I didn't go into the runners. I used walnut for the runners because basically when I make a jig, I'm using what I have hanging around, and I had some walnut hanging around. Now that being said, I definitely would use a hardwood or plywood. I've used 3/8 plywood in the past, and that works good. You're looking for something that's not going to swell or expand and contract a lot. So the next question, or another question, was what kind of wax did I use on the runners? And I like butcher's wax. I like it for the top of my joiner. I use it on the top of my table saw, my bandsaw. It keeps the machine tops from rusting and just helps things slide over them easily. Now, one of the comments was, could I have simply held the frame on something like a 45-degree angle, set the fence, and run it through? Well, that sounds pretty scary to me. And my feeling is, if it sounds scary and dangerous, it probably is. And there's no bigger way to waste your time and your money than getting hurt. Getting hurt is just a total loss. So always respect your machines and don't take unnecessary risks. So somebody had said after that comment, maybe you could cut a piece of material at a 45-degree angle and also run it through. And that got me to thinking, and I thought, well, maybe with a platform on it, and you could use that as a jig, and that might work. But the one thing I like about this jig is the kerf always stays the same, so the cut is supported and you're less likely to get any blowout when you're running the frames through. Another question was about how do I hold the artwork in the frame once you start to put everything together. And I generally just use a nail or a screw and screw lightly into the inside of the frame, not too far because you don't want to blow out through the side, and that works great. And then somebody else had asked, do I use plexiglass or glass to protect the artwork? And that really depends on what the artwork is. If it's a photograph or a work on paper, well then you probably need some kind of glass to protect it. If it's a painting, then you don't have to worry about it. So it really depends on what you're framing. Another question was, why not fill the checks in the white oak frame with epoxy and sawdust? Because I've made a video on using epoxy and sawdust as wood fill, and it does make a great wood fill. But for the frames, I really didn't want to go through the extra work of doing that, and I kind of like the way the checks look in the frame. Now that being said, I probably, or I definitely would avoid using boards like that if I was building something for a client, because chances are they may not get it. They might just see the checks and think, okay, this is not for me. Where a woodworker generally has a different relationship with the materials they use. And so if I was making something for myself, yes, I might use those boards with the checks, but for a client, probably not. You know, unless I make it already and they buy it years from now, well then they're sort of getting what they get. Now, I also wanted to talk a bit about cherry. I think the thing with cherry is you really have to be patient with it, because when you first make your piece, it doesn't have, in my view, the best tonal range or color. And I put this on the chest of drawers that I built. That chest of drawers, by the way, is Babinga and cherry, and it's probably maybe 15 years old. And so I put this on the drawer just to show you the difference in color. And so it doesn't take too long, maybe 4 to 5 months. This should be a nice warm brown, just like that cherry chest of drawers. So I hope I didn't bore you too much with my thoughts on the creative process. Sometimes I think it's good to know that. I like to know those things about how people, sort of the insight of how they come up with things. So if you want to see that painting get painted, that video is coming up, and I'll slice it way down because that has the potential to be a real, snoozer for sure. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you soon.